Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, Khawatteen aur Azad, welcome to another episode of Seema Khan on Seema Khan Life Vlogs. Welcome dosto, friends, family and viewers. What are we going to be discussing today? Today we are going to have a live session, live from London, on this lovely day. It is 19 degrees and we have a promise of rain. But we are going to be discussing a very serious topic indeed. And that topic is to do with Riba and Sood, as known as interest. And why do we need to discuss this topic? We will be dividing, as usual, this session into 3 sections. We will be looking at the meaning of Riba. What is Riba itself? Secondly, why is Riba haram? And thirdly, how can we avoid Riba and how can we live a life which is Riba free? So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. So, the first thing that we want to discuss is, why are there dangers of Riba in the first place? So the dangers of Riba are that basically, is it not amazing that a Muslim basically in many situations will never really eat pork or basically because it's haram or it's unlawful. A Muslim will not do things like, for example, marry his mother, his sister, because that's also haram. And I'm giving you these really very, very harsh examples just to kind of shock you and make you think that these things seem so bad, isn't it? Eating pork, oh, toba, I would never even think about doing that. Marrying your mother, astaghfirullah, how could you say such a thing? Yet that same person who does astaghfar and is so shocked by these things I've just mentioned, they have no problem in devouring riba. And what is riba? Interest and usury. So I think the first point that I want to get across, and the reason why I have decided to do this session on riba, is because a lot of people, and forgive me if you do know this, but a lot of people do not actually know that when you're engaging in riba, sood, interest, in any way whatsoever, it is a major sin. It is such a major sin that it could lead you to hell. And that is why I'm discussing this. Let us look at Qur'an, chapter 2, verse 275. But whoever returns to dealing in riba, such are the dwellers of the fire, they will abide therein. So the question is, and this is the thing that I'd love you all to comment on, everybody who's listening, what I'd like you to comment on is that if riba itself is so, what you could say, something which people take very lightly, then why is it taken so lightly when, after all, riba itself is basically a very, very major offence? So is this not something that you personally find shocking? If you speak to anyone, or you talk about the fact that they might have taken out a loan, or you talk to someone who might be buying a house, for example, does it shock you? This is what I would like you to tell me. Does it still make you feel the way you would feel about zina, the way you would feel about eating pork? Or is it something that Muslims have just kind of automatically fallen into this sin and they begin to take this issue lightly? Because what I have found is there are many, many people, especially those living overseas in the Western world, what they have found is that because this sin is not so kind of physically evident, it does not seem to be such a major, oh, astaghfirullah, you shouldn't be doing that. And this is so important, because the meaning of riba, if we look at it, and proof that is haram, we are now going to discuss, and this is going to possibly shock you, but it's also going to give you the knowledge and the information as to why it is so bad. So the word riba itself is an Arabic noun. So ये जो सा लफ्ज़ riba is from, हम इसको कहते हैं सूद उर्दू में, गोरे people call it interest, which is basically the money that grows on it. But to understand riba itself, it comes from the Arabic word raba, और इसका meaning है is to increase, to grow, to exceed. Right, so this includes interest which is, for example, paid by banks, interest which is paid on loans, and it would be, for example, if you took a loan out for a car, if you took out a home loan, and also it also applies to credit card debt. Now this is one that a lot of people don't know about, so we will talk about how to avoid it in things that people might not quite realize that they're engaging in riba. And you know, the thing is, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it's a major sin, it should be sufficient enough for people to be afraid. But sometimes you could be doing something like credit card debt and not realizing that that's part of riba. So what kind of proof, मतलब है क्या दलाइल है, क्या evidences है कि riba itself is haram? Well, to be honest, there is nothing more proof than the Qur'an itself. This is not a grey area by scholars. This is not one of those things which the scholars are divided about. This is so evident, so clearly said in the Quran Sharif. There are so many proofs showing that riba is haram and one of the most serious sins in Islam. And those jinke sache dil hai, they have true faith in Allah and the Quran, they will immediately go straight to Quran chapter 2. Chapter 2 is Surah Baqarah, verse 275. Allah has permitted trade and has forbidden riba. So this is black and white, absolutely clear. The only areas of confusion are as to what might fall into the category of riba, but riba itself. And bear in mind, this is the ayah that frightens me the most, and this is the ayah that I think all Muslims must understand, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, frighteningly enough, किसी और जगह पे अल्लाह ने कोई जंग नहीं किसी के साथ करी हुई, has not declared war on anything or anyone. No other major sin, not even shirk or zina, but this one in the Quran, Allah does not declare war on anyone except those who deal in riba. How frightening is that? How scary is that? If that does not scare you, I'm quoting again from Surah Baqarah, Quran chapter 2, verse 278 to verse 279. O you who believe, fear Allah and give up what remains of your demand for riba. If you are indeed believers, if you do it not, take notice of war from Allah and His Messenger. This cannot be said any clearly than that, people. Would you like Allah the Almighty to wage war against you? Who are we taking on here? Would you like Allah the Almighty to wage war against you after He has made it abundantly clear that riba is haram? Matlab hai saaf suthra, there is no doubt about it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he warned that consuming riba is one of the 7 sins that doom a person to hell, and this is from an authentic hadith from Bukhari and Muslim. Riba is haram in all respects. There is no such thing as a little bit of riba and a little bit of not riba. There is no confusion. Riba is haram in all of its aspects. As the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and this is from the hadith in Muslim, Allah has cursed the one who consumes riba, the one who gives it, the one who witnesses over it, and the one who writes down the transaction. Be careful here in your jobs, when you're going for jobs, the person who takes riba, जो riba सूद खाता है, जो सूद देता है, जो सूद की witness करता है, जो सूद का transaction तक लिखता है, this is people, do not be one of those people whom Allah has cursed. I'm doing this session today because I care about my community, because I care about those who do not have knowledge, who've inadvertently fallen into this trap. I care about those people who have not meant to but have taken it lightly because they don't know the knowledge of how serious Allah has cursed you if you are in these transactions. But why is it haram? Like, why is it so serious? Because I think this is the big question that I get asked about. Everybody kind of knows, like, okay, the consequences of eating pork are blah blah blah. It's, you know, it's got its own like physical consequences on your health. People know the reasoning. They might not know 100% what's happening with the body, but they know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got some health reasons why we can't eat pork, why it doesn't actually suit the chromosomes of the human body. We all know why we shouldn't be, doing certain things like zina. We shouldn't be doing shirk. Certain things are haram. We know those things. But why is riba haram? And I get asked this question a lot, that why is it so serious? Well, एक तो ये बात है कि हम तो मुसलमान हैं, so our thing is कि Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we trust him. So first and foremost, pehla reason is just it's haram because Allah declared it, and he in his knowledge and wisdom, he has infinite wisdom, and if he deems an action to be obligatory, if he deems an action to be prohibited, he gives a prescription to insan in his best interest, man's best interest in this life and the hereafter. He is all wise, he is all knowing, and the scholars of Islam have discussed on this why riba is haram. So let's look at a couple things. In fact, I don't want to concentrate only just on the individual. हमें ये भी देखना चाहिए कि कितने मुल्क इस प्रॉब्लम में मसरूफ़ हैं, रिबा के प्रॉब्लम में, और हमारे जोन से मुसलमान मुल्क हैं, especially Pakistan, especially India, who also houses 2 million Muslims, especially the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia, especially the Middle Eastern countries who should be at the forefront at the war against riba. वो ऐसे डूबे हुए, and I'm not going to start giving you. I am a big fan of Dr. Israr Ahmed, Allah unko bakshe, who has passed away, who was very, very strongly gave huge lectures about the problem with riba and the problem with riba in Pakistan. But let's just say, just simply, itne mulk, whole nations, dozens of them, I would say more than dozens of them, chote ya bade, they have foreign debts so large that you can say कि उनका जो सा riba का burden है, their loan burden is so great that that's crushing the entire country, and Pakistan is one of those countries. Why is riba so haram? Well, debt kills. ये सूद जो सा है, 11 million children die each year, did you know, because of conditions of poverty and debt. And you know what's something really interesting? There was President Obasanjo of Nigeria. He actually said that from 1985 to 1986 they had borrowed $5 billion in Nigeria, and they'd paid about $16 billion. And you know what they said? We still owe about $20 billion. That $28 billion came about. Why? Because of the injustice of the foreign creditors, the foreign lenders, and their interest rates. And what did he say? In Jubilee News 2000, in August 2000, he said, if you ask me what is the worst thing in the world, I will say it is compound interest. He is saying exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Qur'an. This is the worst sin like ever. Why is it so bad? Well, riba causes conflict between our spirit of in Islam is a spirit of brotherhood, a spirit of sympathy, a spirit which is not meant to be based on greed, selfishness and hard-heartedness. Riba is for those people who are already rich and they want to get richer. Think about it. This is on an international scale and on a personal level. आपस में as well, जब आप कोई ट्रांजैक्शन कर रहे हैं, जो जिसके पास पैसे हैं वो एडवांटेज ले रहा है, दूसरा जो सा मजबूर है उसको ऑलरेडी बोरो करने की ज़रूरत है किसी वजह से, और ऊपर से उसके ऊपर और सूद डाल रहे हो. So what is it? All this महंगाई जो सी हो रही है countries, all this inflation which is happening, what is the biggest contributor to inflation? It is riba. It is sood. It is all the interest rates. Think about it, this coronavirus that we have had, so many people have lost their jobs, people who have got mortgages, people that have got homes. If you are Muslim and you already did not have a mortgage on your home, then in this coronavirus situation, you will not have the level of stress. But I cannot tell you the level of trauma and depression that the Muslim community is suffering from as well, trying to keep up with their neighbors, trying to keep up with what everybody else is doing. Riba is causing so much depression, and in particular for the men in this country who have the responsibility, they have the problem that they cannot actually, they're unaffordable. The housing market is unaffordable in UK for so many people, for first time buyers. Women are having to go out to work, so the family structure is all getting ruined as well, because women are have to going out to work to pay this mortgage. So I mean, let me just, I'm here every week talking about topics, and I'm very careful that I've come to a point in my life where I talk about those topics, and I talk about the big topics, but only with a personal understanding of it. And what I would say is that I myself am very, very anti-riba because of the way my parents have brought me up, even in this country. And my house as well is not on mortgage, it's a rented house. And this is what I want to show you. I'm not just somebody who's talking of, that not practicing what I'm actually saying. What I'm saying is that if I was in a situation now where it's coronavirus and there's difficulty with job situations, and there was difficulty in paying a mortgage, I can understand the troubles that people might be going through. So this is very important to understand, that when I talk about a topic, I'm coming from an angle of understanding, and what I can assure you is that and I will talk about this later down below, it is much better to rent than take out the mortgage, and I will explain that further when we look at the housing market. Now, riba, what else is wrong with riba? Well, riba is like a sure gain. Riba is like basically for the rich people. They don't want any loss. Unke paas already paisa hai, right? Who's taking the risk? Who's bearing all the tension, all the problems, all the risk? Is the borrower. It's the just बेचारे बंदे के पास already पैसे नहीं है. It's the borrower who's having to take the risk rather than share it. And I will talk down later, where there are Islamic finance situations where the risk is shared by both parties, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. He wants that kind of understanding of brotherhood between people, because the reason why there is so much war against riba is because it creates a monopoly in a society. The rich that are already rich are rewarded for being wealthy. They're already getting so much more money. And those that are not rich, the people that have not, well, they're forced to pay extra. Where is the fairness? This is an unjust society, and this applies not just to individuals but also the countries. The countries that are already poor, that are already struggling, they are going further and further into debt. And don't forget, one thing that when I was looking at lectures on riba a couple of years ago, was that you don't really own that property yourself. So for example, you're a billionaire and you're like President Trump, and you've got all this Trump empire and everything. All you're doing is that you are leaving extra inflated value property for your the next generation. So you're causing trouble for the next generation. Basically, tum sara boj jo tum to chhod ke chale jaoge, you will have enjoyed all that wealth and you will leave it for the next generation, and the next generation will come up, they will be just like you. They will be selfish and they will be greedy as well. Wo aur inflate kar denge price ko, and then what will happen? This is why people are suffering from poverty, because the people who are poor have already been priced out of even living a normal life. Basically, even rent is so high because of this reason, because of the value of the properties that the people have taken out on mortgage. They've started a system which is anti-Islamic, it is anti the poor people, and it's exploiting those people who are already on the poverty line. During the global financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, let me tell you, in the Daily Vatican newspaper, L'Osservatore Romano reported that the Vatican, so this is in Rome, yeah, where the Pope is, he said that the Islamic finance system may help Western banks in the crisis as an alternative. And this is the Vatican, this is the Catholic Church advising that the ethical principles on which Islamic finance is based may bring banks closer to their clients and to the true spirit which should mark every financial service. So in other words, जो से क्रिश्चियन भी लोग हैं, जो से थोड़े बहुत रिलीजियस है, वो भी कह रहे हैं कि जो सा इस्लामिक सिस्टम, it is based on bringing people together and humanity together and is not based on a capitalist system. And when you think about it, जब markets गिरती हैं, which are based on the riba based market, right, जो से Islamic financial institutions, they don't suffer in the same way. So these are all the problems and all the issues with why the riba is such a problem. So how can I avoid riba? Well, living in a capitalist society, it makes it very difficult to completely avoid riba, so this should not be used as an excuse to freely indulge in it. Basically, an obvious way would be to just steer clear of this evil. Don't ever take out a loan, don't pay riba in any way whatsoever, and just keep yourself free of it. But there are other solutions. There are riba-free bank accounts which are now available. You can do things which is like not enter into contracts which stipulate riba. So look at the contracts that have any interest and make sure that any penalties, and even if you intend to pay on time, try not to enter those transactions. Also, when you're paying bills and stuff, try not to pay them late so that you incur a late penalty, because that also counts as riba. So you know, like when you pay your water bill or something late and then you have to pay a penalty on it, that counts as Sood. So be very careful of that. When you're doing any trading conditions, do it without the use of riba. If you can and you do need money, try and borrow money from family or friends, and try and deal with Islamically compliant banks. You should rent. If you can't afford to buy a house, this is a big issue in the Western world. You should rent instead of buying a house with riba. We were just talking about kindness amongst each other. When you're accepting or organizing a goodly loan, मतलब है कोशिश करो एक दूसरे के साथ kindness to each other, right? And which doesn't involve taking riba. So that means within your families, within your friendships, try and help those people out who have less than you. Now, one of the things that people really struggle with is with regard to interest that the bank has given you. So this is a question that I get asked about all the time, because it's a very basic question. Often you live in a country where you want to deposit your money, you Muslim, you do not want to take interest, you are very aware of this, but what can you do that in your current account they might still be giving you a small amount of interest? Right, do not give that money back to the bank. Yeah, because then you've just taken it and then you've just helped the bank itself. Don't consume it, like don't use it yourself, right? What you should do is, and this is what the scholars are kind of in consensus, what needs to be done is spend it on charitable causes, such as like giving the money to poor people and buying disposable items. Like one example is like, for example, toilet paper for your Islamic center or your masjid or something. Or you could help people that are in debt. That would be a perfect way to help other people coming out of debt. But one important thing is that when you spend that interest, don't expect some kind of like reward back for it, because again, then you're falling into the trap. Remember that behind all of this riba and all of this war against riba is to instill in the hearts, to take away hubb dunya, to take away the love of this world. The people who are indulging in riba are people who obviously have money and want more, and they are indulging in riba And then the people who are taking the riba are people who do not have so much but want more. This is all a disease. And I won't get started because everybody who knows me from my original sessions that I first did on my channel, you can go back and look at them. This video as well will be posted on Seema Khan Life Vlogs, which is my YouTube channel. Please go to that channel and please subscribe. And if you are interested in my favorite topic, which is diseases of the heart, then please go and look at my very early early vlogs and videos that I did on miserliness, love of this world, and wantonness. These are my favorite topics, and I will be covering more of them. But all of this riba is connected with those topics because it's a disease of the heart. Do not forget, love of this world, hubbe dunya, is a disease of the heart. So there is a big question though. What if I am desperate? This question gets asked all the time, and what I'd like to say is that when I was younger and we used to have these dars in Scotland where we grew up in Glasgow, there were so many businessmen, but they were also the businessmen's wives. So when we used to go to the Sunday dars lectures, there used to be special dars lectures for the ladies. And when I was a teenager, Mummy used to take us along, and a lot of the ladies used to ask this question. They used to ask questions about zakat, for example. Do I need to pay, on my churiya, and how much do I need to pay? But there were also kind of social and financial issues which the ladies had, which was, for example, I know that Sood is haram, but my husband is insisting that we now need to buy a house on mortgage, and he will not listen to me. So there were so many questions. The scholars used to say that, look, this is something that you all need to go and research if you're in that situation, because the scholars used to advise them then that you need to do nafrat from it in your heart. If you're in a situation where your husband will then be violent on you, then you need to be careful. But you do need to understand that if you're a woman and you're in a situation where you and your heart think that this is wrong, but you can't control the situation, you have to take every action. After all, if your husband was beating up your children or something, you would take action. This is even a worse, like he said, is a major sin. So you have to assess the situation, but you need to get advice from the scholars as to what extent you are responsible as an individual for something that somebody else is doing. You need to remember, Islam is a very forgiving religion. One is forgiven for performing a forbidden act in times of desperation, right? And also you are forgiven if you have done this in the past. I know a lot of people have asked questions like, what should I do now that I've realized it's haram and I'm in a situation where I've got mortgage? People say pay it off as quickly as you can and get out of the situation. So there is a lot of flexibility in it. However, just to be careful, Allah Ta'ala knows our niyat, right? He knows when you're being forced to use riba. And if you were being forced, then to be honest, that if it would result in extreme hardship or death, then everything in Islam, to be honest, becomes temporarily permissible. But be very careful. That is only until that severe hardship has come to an end. And this is the argument that is being used all the time. Always keep in mind that the hardship that you might suffer in this dunya because you didn't take out riba, for the sake of Allah, for the sake of your deen, you will gain reward for that. And so fortunately or unfortunately for you, anybody who has Islamic knowledge and understanding of the situation, they will be able to determine to what extent a person is in difficulty. And I would say in this situation, you will be very unlikely to be an exception to the rule, because I think, and correct me if you think I am wrong, comment if you think I'm wrong in this, because this is the common view of the scholars. But if you think this is wrong, many people wrongly basically consume riba and then they suffer the consequences later by Allah. They wrongly do it mainly because there's a huge common misconception amongst Muslims, especially in the Western world, regarding buying their first house. Now, I'm openly saying this baat so that log understand kar sakte hain clearly, that there is no confusion. This is not about naming and shaming. This is about understanding and educating ourselves. Some people they claim that it's permissible because it's a necessity, because they feel they actually have these feelings. And remember, Islam does not go on feelings, but they actually have these feelings of desperation, these feelings of hardship, and these feelings that मैं तो मर जाऊंगा if I don't actually own my own home because everybody else owns their own home. So what you've got to understand is you can easily rent a house instead of buying. It is so much easier to rent a house than buy, and it is not a necessity, but people have made it like this. Think about it. If this was true, so you want to buy your first house, then the thing is, then people would say, okay, when it comes, you're really, really thirsty, right? So, water is available, right? So water is not as good, but let me just drink alcohol because the thing is, the first bottle of alcohol is permissible. Or what about then going to like talking about pork, right? It is basically a situation where there's a permissible substitute. Renting is a permissible substitute. It is an easy solution for the Rahaish problem, right? And do remember, the people who argue on this point, they are fooling other people into believing this, but most of all, they're fooling themselves. Qur'an, chapter 5, verse 99. Allah knows all that you reveal and all that you conceal. So, and please do not think, especially the brothers out there, paying rent in order to support yourself, this is not wasted money. I have heard this said, so ये तो पैसे ज़ाया जा रहे हैं, ये तो हम किराए में दे रहे हैं, हम तो इसको सूद में देते थे, आज तक हमारा घर इतना बड़ा हो जाता है, right? No, inshallah, Allah the most appreciative will reward this like charity. So that money that you are paying for your wife and children in rent, Bukhari and Muslim, and I quote, when someone spends on his family seeking his reward for it from Allah, it is counted as a charity from him. So that rent that you're paying is a sadaqah, and the more you continue to pay, it is not wasted money. You have actually put that money aside for your akhirah, whereas the sood that you would be paying would be like a snake around your neck. So why am I doing this topic? What do I want for my fellow brothers and sisters in Islam? I want success in this life and the hereafter. Why am I examining this issue of riba? Because we should remember that the true success lies with the help of Allah alone. And if we abide by that which is lawful and avoid that which is haram, our wealth will be blessed and it will be beneficial in this world and the hereafter. Socho zara, क्या होगा? What good is this extra money? क्या फ़ायदा हमें होगा जब हमने through riba इसको earn करा है? There is no blessing in it. It is cursed. It is a source of misery. On the day of resurrection, people will rise from their graves quickly, except those who engaged in riba. They will stand up and then fall down like epileptics because Qur'an Chapter 2 again, Surah Baqarah, verse 275. Those who consume riba cannot stand on the day of resurrection. Astaghfirullah, this is frightening me. Those who consume riba cannot stand on the day of resurrection, except as one stands who is being beaten by Satan into insanity. That is because they say, trade is just like riba. But Allah has permitted trade and has forbidden riba. So such is the punishment for those who consume riba and do not sincerely repent from this great sin. Brothers and sisters in Islam, if you are striving towards success by earning Allah's pleasure, please have no doubt in your mind, and I've said this before, you are wasting your efforts with your namazi and your rosy, and be aware those people that are going, who have had the benefit of going on Hajj, where they are going on Hajj and they have still been consuming or giving riba. There are scholars who say that their Hajj is invalidated, and I will double check this point, but there are scholars who have said that you need to seriously look into the actions that you're doing. If you're involved in riba, you are certainly not striving towards success by earning Allah's pleasure. And those who are not indulging in this, who are careful, who both apne akhirat ka aur is dunya ka bhi khayal rakh rahe hain, take comfort from the following verse. O you who believe, do not devour riba, example interest, making it double and redouble, and be careful of your duty to Allah, that you may be successful. And that's Qur'an verse 3, chapter 3, verse 130. Now another thing is that we're also shown how to be successful in the hereafter. Qur'an chapter 24, verse 51. The only saying of the faithful believers when they are called to Allah, His words, the Qur'an, and His Messenger to judge between them, is that they say, we hear and we obey, and such are the successful who will live forever in paradise, inshallah. So now I'm just going to conclude on this lovely crisp day in London. It is 19 degrees. It is going to be raining. However, we have discussed one of the most serious and eminent topics that are currently important for Muslims all over the world. We cannot doubt riba is haram and a major sin, and no disobedience to Allah is worth the risk of His punishment. Remember everyone that the life of this world is short and fleeting. हम कितनी देर इधर रहेंगे इस दुनिया में? What is the purpose of our existence? हमारा existence जीने, not to lust after beauty and wealth, but rather to worship Allah correctly and live by His rules. And always bear in mind, the reason why I'm covering this topic is just because riba is widespread and common. It does not make it permissible. And I end today with this ayah from the Qur'an, chapter 65, verse 2 to 3. And whosoever fears Allah and keeps his duty to Him, He will make a way for him to get out from every difficulty, and will provide him sustenance from where he never even imagined. And whosoever puts his trust in Allah, Allah is sufficient for him. Subhanallah. So thank you everyone for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen, Khawateen aur Hazrat, Dosto, friends, family and viewers. On this lovely, clear and crisp day in London, it is 19 degrees and we are going for an afternoon that is promised of rain. But thank you for joining me on this amazing and very important topic. I have got so many more videos for you on my channel. You have been listening to Seema Khan and my YouTube channel is Seema Khan Life Vlogs. Thank you for joining me. Fi Amanallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.